Okay, we're going to talk today a little bit about general leading and sidewalking with our volunteers and the horses and students. At the standstill, you see Vicki standing to the head of the horse. This is where all leaders should be when the horse is standing still. When the rider goes to move forward, the leader will then go towards the side of the horse. And she's going to position herself between the eye and the shoulder of the horse, and then we always use our words to ask the horse to move on. Good. And you see that Vicki doesn't have a real tight hold on Vinny's head. The horses like to be able to move their head a little bit while they're walking, and if you have too tight of a grip, they're not going to be able to do that. Now you may have to take up the slack a little bit. When you go into the trot, it kind of depends on the horse. Each horse is a little bit different. Now this is a rider with no sidewalkers, so the leader may have to help give some instructions to help the instructor along, because the instructor doesn't have eyes everywhere, but tries to as much as she can. And you see all along that the leader is going to be keeping their eyes forward and focus forward, but occasionally glancing at the rider. Okay, one thing I want to talk about now is positioning of the sidewalker. You see Danielle's right in line with the student. She's able to keep a good eye on what the student is doing and to be able to help the student along. If she were to get too far ahead by the horse's shoulder, she's not going to be able to see what the student is doing, and she'd almost have to turn around in order to help the student with any instructions. And if she were to get too far behind, back by the horse's hip there, she's in a really bad position to possibly get kicked or to get hit with the horse's tail, especially during the summer months when the flies are bad. So she wants to stay right in line with the student, and that is where she is going to be most helpful to the student. Now we've got one sidewalker, and what she's doing right now is just a standby assist. The rider doesn't need any holds at this point, so she's just following along. And in this case, the leader would not worry too much about the student. Their main concern is going to be the horse and what the horse is doing and keeping the horse safe for the student. The sidewalker is going to be the one giving the instructions, helping with the instructions. Okay, this hold here is what's called an ankle hold, and this is just to give a little extra support for a rider who may have a little bit of balance issues, but not bad. The other thing might be is if the rider's leg is a little active, the sidewalker's hand can be there to help keep it from bumping the horse too much. Okay, so we're still doing the ankle hold here. You see that Danielle is keeping in good position right next to the rider so that she's not getting too far ahead or too far behind the horse. And she's got a good hold on the rider. Okay, now this is a thigh hold. This is for a student that has very little balance, but may need that extra support to hold them in the saddle. Sometimes we may use one person or two people to do the thigh hold. And you can see the hand is just resting on the front of the saddle, and then the arm rests over the rider's thigh. And then when they go to walk away, they just, again, the sidewalker is going to stay in that position while they walk on. Okay, so when we need two sidewalkers, we're going to have the person on the right-hand side of the horse like we do normally. And then when you come around to the left side of the horse, we've got the second person. And this person is going to have, a lot to think about being in behind the leader, because there's going to be a lot of close footwork involved when they're walking. But for right now, I'm going to have them both do a thigh hold for the student. And then we're going to have the horse walk on And again, the sidewalkers need to keep that position on both sides. And this would be for maybe a brand new student or a student that really has very little upper body control, little balance. They're both going to be there to support the rider. Now this is still done at a walk and trot. We're just going to walk today for the purposes of positioning. But you can see even from the other side there that the second sidewalker really has to kind of watch where they're walking in order not to step on the leader's feet, although the leaders understand if that happens from time to time. Okay, so now let's talk about at the beginning of the lesson with two sidewalkers. If you have too many people talking to the student, it could cause a lot of confusion for the student. So the sidewalkers need to decide amongst themselves who's going to do the majority of the talking during the lesson. And the other important part is that the leader also needs to know not to talk too much to the student either, other than for congratulation type things during, a skill that's well done. But let the sidewalkers, if you have them, let them do the talking to the student. If there's something on the right side versus the left side, the person who's the backup sidewalker may have to say some things, but the majority is going to be one person or the other. Okay, now there needs to be some communication between the leaders and the sidewalkers. If something is going on with a student and they need to stop the horse, the sidewalkers need to be able to communicate with the leader and say, hey, we need to stop, we need to pull up, this is what's going on. The leader also needs to be able to ask the sidewalkers if she sees the horse doing something, reacting a certain way, that she needs to communicate with the sidewalkers to see if the student is doing something to cause that. Okay, sometimes you may have to do some hand-over-hand assisting, and basically what that is just what Megan is showing here. She's got her hand over the rider's hand on the reins, and if they need to pull that rein back for a left-hand turn, she's going to actually pull the rider's hand back so that the horse can make that turn. And the same would happen on the right-hand side if somebody was needing to do that. If there's a whoa, then both hands would come back at the same time. Now, if the student just needs a little reminder from time to time, maybe they're not pulling the rein back like they should, the sidewalker can tap the back of the hand of the rider to remind them to use that rein. So this was just a basic overview of how to do the leading and sidewalking to keep everything safe for the rider, the horse, and the volunteers.